Good evening and welcome back to the Royal Club. Merry Christmas, everyone, already. And every single time we meet again until Christmas, I'm going to say Merry Christmas. I just love Christmas. And I hope you all have a wonderful decoration celebration already set up. But I think it's a wonderful time of the year, regardless of Christmas, but especially because of Christmas and with all the craziness that goes on in this world, to remember that we are grateful to have yet another Christmas. Not everybody could make it, but it's just a good time to kind of think about the whole year, what you're thankful for, your family that are around you, your friends, and it's just a good thing to look back and give praise to God. So, but today, let's see, we are going to talk about how to deal with difficult people. You wouldn't think that from Christmas we are going to jump into this, but it is this time of the year that we have to deal with a lot of family members, don't we? And colleagues at times. And at times they seem to be challenging or can be challenging. But it doesn't have to be a bad time for us, because we can take it as a challenge. We can take it as a test. So this is a subject we can all relate to, how to deal with difficult people. We all have difficult people in our lives, and we can all use some advice how to handle them without compromising our integrity and our principles. So some of the hardest people I have found are hardest people to handle are those who are closest to us, because otherwise, why would you care what, people on the street say, or maybe they give you a bad look or something. But those who are the closest to us are the ones who kind of know how to push our buttons, right? So especially around Christmas, we don't want to run into these situations without some godly advice. So this can be family members, colleagues, friends, even neighbors, people in the gym, anybody really. But it's not something unusual. It's something that everybody at every age, every era have faced with. And this is why Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. I think that's the King James Version. And in more modern translation, this is how it sounds. I think it's an NIV. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. So when you are being sharpened, that doesn't seem like a pleasant experience. Yet it is so necessary, because these difficulties are the ones that are shaping us, they're stretching us, and they are allowing us to grow. In other words, we are forced to grow in situations like this, because when everything is peaceful, when everything is comfortable, you never grow. I mean, muscles grow under strain, under stress, under work, right? So God allows difficult situations and difficult people in our lives so that we can grow. Without challenges, there is no growth. Look at all those people who really have nothing better to do with their lives, because they have all the money, they don't need to worry about anything, everything is solved with, for them and instead of them. So they don't grow intellectually, they don't grow in terms of how to handle themselves, because everybody's running around them because they have all the money. But there's no personal growth, because they are not under any kind of strains whatsoever. So without challenges, there is no growth. How you handle difficult people and difficult situations determines how high you are going to go. If you handle yourself well, you will get promoted. If you handle yourself poorly, you will keep taking the same test over and over again until you pass, isn't it? Some people say, you get promoted and then if you don't pass the test, then God demotes you. I don't think he demotes you. He just makes everybody accelerate. So basically, you are back in the same place, right? So basically, he never fails anybody on any test. You just keep taking the same test over and over again until you pass. So if they are disrespectful to you, I mean, let's just say disrespectful. This is just so easy for everyone to disrespectful people these days. I don't know why exactly, except this is a spirit that has been released on the world these days. And if you don't mind yourself, or if you don't pay attention, you can easily fall into it. What do I mean by this? For instance, if people are disrespectful to you and you are disrespectful back, that will keep you from going higher, right?
Yep.
We overcome evil by doing good. We don't overcome evil by escalating the evil. It will only escalate the situation because the person will do something again to you, then you will retaliate and so on and so forth. But if you repay evil with evil, the situation will only escalate. You will never get promoted that way. You will never get past this offense. You never overcome disrespect with more disrespect. You only allow yourself to sink to the level of that disrespectful person. And I want to take a little pause here and just call your attention to something that you may have suspected, but I want to confirm it from my vast experience with this, that people who disrespect you are those who don't respect themselves, those who really have a very, very low self-esteem of themselves. So they are basically just projecting that onto you. And they try to project it onto you because they see that you are more confident than they are. So they are trying to be more confident and showing you disrespect. But really all that is trying to project their insecurities, their low self-esteem, their disrespect of themselves, really. So that's what you don't want to aggravate. You don't want to trigger that. You don't want to escalate that. And you definitely don't want to participate in that in any way, shape, or form. So just be aware of that. This is why. Most of the times, this is why. So in other words, when someone disrespects you, that's a test of your character, because that may be something that triggers you. That may be something that's your button that they're trying to push, even without knowing. You know, Satan can use them perfectly well. So some people don't know any better because they have never been raised better. You know, maybe they came from an environment where respect was absolutely not taught. They don't even understand the word respect, let alone honor. They don't understand that. So some people don't know any better, and they need to be taught. But some people are disrespectful and even dishonoring on purpose. And I think last time we touched on that. Disrespect means that when someone is disrespectful for you, it's because they don't know your value. But dishonor is when they know your value and they still making a point by purposely ignoring your value, and they are dishonoring you. So that's what it is. They are doing it on purpose. The key is you don't want to take the bait. You don't want to go down to the mud with them. Okay, you're not a pig. To make a point, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a point. Never sink to their level. If someone does not addresses you by your title or just shows disrespect, dishonor to you, just keep addressing them by their own title anyway. God wants to see you overcome every test. He wants to promote you. He wants to see that you are the bigger person. God wants to see you take the high road and not take the bait. Well, you might think that, you know what, if I keep taking the high road, what's in it for me? Well, God is in it for you because God is going to vindicate you. And the Bible is full of stories, real life stories from real people, very real people with the same situations, maybe in different circumstances, different cultures, different era, but the same nagging people, same disrespectful people. And the Bible shows how they have overcome these tests over and over again, and they have always been promoted. Joseph was disrespected by his whole family, then dishonored by his brothers, even though all these wonderful promises, dreams God has placed in his heart, and of course he was not wise to share them. But you know, you don't sell people and you don't push them into a pit just because you don't like them. So that was a little bit excessive on their part, how they try to repay their little brother. So there might be some issues there, major issues there with the brothers, that they would have rather see their little brother or half brother, as it is or as it was, dead than be promoted by God. I mean, how evil do you have to be to go against the God, you know? So, you know, I'm just saying that you are probably luckier than Joseph was, and you don't face these kind of challenges from your family members or from your colleagues or from your friends or any environment that you are, or maybe in your church, you know, you never know. Some people are, you know, they can be very disrespectful there too at times. But the point is, that you have it better than Joseph had it. So nobody's trying to push you into a pit. Nobody's trying to sell you to the Egyptians. But the bottom line is disrespect is disrespect in no matter for whatever form it presents itself, and it can be very easily detected. So I don't doubt that people are at times facing this particular challenge, and this is why I picked this example, because I know that this is just all over the place right now. Even in comments, you may make an honest and an innocent statement in response to an article, for instance, or even a news, and people just kind of they feel like their buttons is pushed, or maybe they don't agree with what you're saying, and they just immediately going personal. They don't even address that situation that you address. They immediately go personal. So don't need to read those comments, don't need to read any comments, actually, and life will be better. I know a lot of people who are very famous, and they keep reading the comments, and they keep feeling horrible. And I keep telling them, don't read the comments. I mean, how easy is that? Just don't. Write whatever you want to write, post whatever you want to post. You don't have to read the response. Nobody is holding a gun to your head. But they, of course, kind of like they want to engage in some kind of, they want to defend themselves. They want to defend their position. And in turn, they are not going to convince anybody, whoever had low opinion of themselves, or they just want to, just kind of vomit out whatever they had at that time. But if you don't engage, there's no escalation. Just don't respond. Don't read it. This way it won't affect you. That's a very, very simple solution. And that's just online. I mean, imagine if it goes face to face. That's a different story, right? So in other words, you don't want to waste your emotional energy on difficult people. But I want to show you how to handle them, not how to engage, within their little petty fight, because it's usually not about that thing that they address. It's about something way more deeper, and it's about their personality disorders, their own struggles, their own low self-esteem. So no matter what you do, you're not going to correct that at that time, because they are coming from a very different critical angle, and they're trying to see you going down as opposed to them being made whole. So just don't waste your emotional energy on difficult people, on things that don't matter. In other words, don't hold on to peanuts and lose the world. You have bigger fish to fry. You don't have to engage in small talks, in things that don't matter, small matters, don't engage. Small offenses, don't even notice them. Why? You have a whole world to reach and big dreams to pursue. You need your emotional energy on that focus. You need to keep your focus. You don't need your brain to be scattered all over the place, especially if it's something emotional that can really damp your fire. So you don't want to go into that, because you cannot control how other people treat you, but you can control how you respond. There will always be people who don't understand you, don't understand your calling, don't understand why you are the way you are, why you respond the way you respond. And they try to, because they don't understand, they try to bring you down to their level. You don't want that to happen. So you don't want to take the bait. It could be an uncle, it could be a family member, it could be your own brother or sister, because sometimes people that you grow up with, they see the least of God's gift in you because of familiarity. And we taught on that earlier. And familiarity is basically breeds contempt. Familiarity is basically hides the treasure that you are from the people who are the closest to you, closest in terms of family relationships. So those people who are disrespectful to you, or they are spreading lies about you or rumors, they don't control your destiny. Don't get into fights that don't matter. The only power they have is what you give them. So my advice is don't respond to them. Definitely don't respond to them in the way they respond to you. Crows cannot fly or hang with the eagles. Crows cannot handle the altitude of the eagles, but crows like to pass their eagles for some reason. They just have that kind of a personality disorder, much like many people that we know and love, of course. But the point is, the eagle doesn't engage. The eagle is obviously much bigger. It can just turn around and, I don't know, just take a swipe at the crow, but they don't do that. When they get tired of the crows, they just fly higher. They fly to an altitude that the crows cannot handle. So that's why I advise you always take the high road. Always take the high road, because the crows, your critics cannot handle that heights, and they don't even understand what just happened. Oops, he's no longer around. She's no longer around. She's not responding. So I guess I have to move on to the next person because my trigger is over. My power is over. So that's what I advise to you, whatever situations you find yourself, especially around Christmas time with people, but I mean all the time you can run into people, even in the stores, who are, a clerk that is not very respectful, not very helpful, or downright disrespectful. You just have to remember that this is a spirit. You want to bless them, bless the people who are disrespectfully treating you. And by that, you are taking the high road, and God always awards those who are taking the high road. So it's never a waste. If you don't get promoted, because always your work is always credited by your boss to someone else, just take the high road. Just hold on to your oil of joy, and just let that oil so permeate your being that everything just slides off of you like a Teflon. No matter what they throw at you, it will never stick. So you hold on to your oil of joy. And how do you do that? You remind yourself that you have a destiny. You remind yourself that you don't have to get down to the mud with the people who have a problem, definitely have a problem, not with you, but with themselves. So that's my advice to you. Don't go down to the mud with the pigs. You're not a pig, you're an eagle. You fly higher. You have a destiny to protect. In the Bible, you see how David fought. He only engaged in fights that was connected to his destiny. Like for instance, the one with Goliath. That was definitely a nation-changing, life-altering. His whole promotion was from that point onward. If you notice, people began to take notice of him, even though he was fighting with with connection to his sheep. He was protecting his sheep, so he had his beautiful fighting spirit in him, and it wasn't hard for him to fight because it was his nature. So it may be your nature to fight, but pick your battles. Pick your battles, and don't engage in small battles that don't affect your destiny. Because actually what happens is that even if you win that little fight, it will not get you higher. It will not get you higher. It will just give power to the enemy over you. Because see, you have wasted so much emotional energy. You have wasted so much of your time, and so much of your focus is broken. Because you were already focused on something that didn't really matter. Each of us can, I'm sure, think back of times and of fights that we have fought with the wrong person. Because why do I need to even acknowledge someone's disrespectfulness? I don't have to. I don't have to. And with that, I basically took out the wind out of the person's sail, because see, it was meant to be triggering me. But if I don't respond the way I was expected by this other person to respond, then they have nothing on me, right? So that's my advice to you. Don't get engaged in things that don't matter. Just take the high road. Always use respectful language, always act respectfully, and people who are watching this whole thing quietly, they will take notice of you, and they will also take notice of the other person. And you will appear very wise, you will appear very mature, and you will always take the high road. So that's my advice to you. And with that, I'm opening it to this whole beautiful thousands of people panel that we have today. And please let me know what you think.
Okay. I had to finish my note. All right. I took lots of notes. That was excellent. I always enjoy listening to you and writing down notes and
Thank you.
learning.
Likewise.
Thank you. So, how would you describe compromise? You said don't compromise. How would you explain compromise, what it is, and how to actually not compromise?
Well, for instance, if someone uses foul language, you don't want to go down to that level.
Right.
and use it back. If someone spreads rumors about you, you don't want to do the same. If
Right.
someone spreads lies about you, or calling you names, in any way, I mean, it's just so it's just a vast,
Yeah.
too many to mention. That's what I mean. Don't go down to that level. If they use
Okay.
foul language, you don't do that. If they don't use your title, you don't use that back. If they don't say good day to you, you keep saying good day to them. In other words, their bad behavior will not change your good behavior. You will not, because see, then they took control over you.
Yeah.
And that can never happen. It's
Right.
you who should be influencing them to take, to rise up higher. And eventually, I'm sure they will, because they should have tried this with many other people as well. And all of them took the bait, so they thought that, okay, well, now it's your turn. So I guess, as Christian as you are, I'm sure you will take the bait as well, because it always worked for them before. You see, they're going to use their arsenal, if you will, what they have used before. So today it's your button they are trying to push. Yesterday was someone else's. But if you keep showing a different attitude than what they are used to, they would be very shocked. And
Right.
and I believe they will actually, take notice, and they if they are intelligent enough, they will make the adjustment in their own lives.
Right. So don't repeat what they do, don't mimic what they do, and don't even give attention to what they do, really. You kind of you ignore it and you stay. I like how Apostle says, stay in your lane. Maybe he wouldn't
You
use
ignore
words
it
like that
in
here,
a
but
way that you don't do it back. But I wouldn't, like, for instance, if someone doesn't call me by my title, it makes no difference to me. I keep using their title just the same, as if they have also. I keep showing the same respect as if they would have shown the same respect to me.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Iron sharpens iron. You mentioned that. So how would you explain exactly iron sharpens iron? And according to the word, like, how would you describe exactly what that means and how we can play that out in real life?
Well, basically you chisel each other. It could be your marital partner, who doesn't show respect, and in that case, you have a lot of opportunity to grind against each other. You meet at breakfast, you meet, maybe you don't like spend the whole day together, but in holiday season you might, you as in general you. So we're not talking about anybody else, but then you will have a lot of opportunity, especially if the person, for instance, your spouse is not Christian, then maybe they had a bad day, and then they kind of at dinner table, they just kind of put it on you because they had a bad day. So you don't want to respond in the same spirit at all.
Okay.
And with that, you will be sharpened, and he will be sharpened too, or she will be sharpened too.
Right.
You chisel each other, but marriage is a great thing for that, No wonder I'm not married. Sorry, I support every marriage. I really do. I just don't think this is
marriage is not for everyone, for sure.
Marriage is not for everyone. I think that's what it is. But lots of opportunity there to get sharpened, because that's what it is for, isn't it?
Yes, there is. Yeah. And I can say that Annette, she's very good at few words that sometimes cut sharply.
Oh wow.
And then we if I need to be corrected, and I too, but we try never to do it disrespectfully. We do it out of love, right? And but sometimes, we get a little bit irritated, and in the heat of the moment, maybe something's said, and then we just kind of go separate ourselves, come back and talk, and it's like, okay, so what have we learned from this? How can we grow from this, right? Or do we need to cut something right off? Do we need to? Is there something that really is in our lives that we just don't need? That maybe is more of a distraction than anything. Yeah, because we always try to help each other to grow in the destiny and purpose that we have, right? So that's very important.
Well, you see, that's a very good example for the positive, because you don't try to push each other's buttons on purpose.
Right.
In fact, you try to avoid it, because you are all trying to push each other towards each of your destinies. But
Yeah.
for those who are doing it on purpose,
Yeah.
that's the challenging part, because at least you guys have love. You know, you have that base of love, and you know whatever the other person is doing, they are not doing it on purpose. They may
Right.
be unaware how it sounded, or maybe you
Mhm.
were in a situation where it just wasn't a good time for, you know, for the person to correct you. But imagine the times when people are doing it on purpose, and they keep doing it, you know, and
Yeah.
maybe they are in some kind of authority figure. Maybe it's your pastor, maybe it's your a boss, you know. So how do you handle those situations when it's directed towards you?
Yeah. Yeah. And you need to have the confidence to be able, well, first of all, you need to recognize what your destiny is and who you are and what you need to work on, what you need to hold on to. And then when others challenge that and maybe irritate you and do kinds of things on purpose to try to tear you down, to try
Yeah.
to mock you, when you have that confidence, then you can look at them and just say, nope. And that's actually not uncommon for me to just
I
look
heard a great
and say
story.
nope.
Yeah, exactly. I always think that there is something more behind that, because usually people are not necessarily evil. So there's usually something behind it. If someone, you know, treats you, especially people that you don't know, like you don't know nothing about them, like a clerk in a store. And I heard a story that somebody was very very disrespectful to somebody in the store, maybe Walmart or something. And let's see, it was a long time ago that I heard, but the point was that the person still responded very nicely, and turned out that the lady who was at the counter, and she was very disrespectful and just dismissive or even rude or something to the person. So it's like it's just a very interesting situation, because you can do that. I mean, you could be fired for that. So it was just something odd. And turns out, I don't know how it came about, but turns out that the lady who was not very nice, I think her husband or her daughter hospital, and they basically had no money for the treatment. So there's all this kind of thing going on, and it just, you know, it was all bottled up. And of course she had to still go to work, but she had all these things in her mind. I'm not saying it as an excuse, but it's an explanation.
Yeah.
So the person wasn't evil, but there was so much going on in their lives that, or in her life at the time, that she just couldn't deal with it. And it was, you know, she had to go to work. I mean, usually when you are in such situation, it's best to stay home and you know, deal with that emotionally, you know, do whatever you can do. But it was a happy ending story, because then the person was able to help them financially and things like that, the very person that the lady was very rude to. But but I think this is how it came about, that the person was very rude, and this person didn't respond in rudeness, because he was Christian, and he was just asking, what's wrong, can I help? And she just started crying. And that's when it turned out that she was actually able to relate the whole story, that basically she was dealing with a lot of issues. And you know, it ended up. So sometimes what happens is that people don't mean to be rude. They just have so much things that they have to deal with at home and or at work, you know, and just kind of spills out that way.
Yeah. I think a person who is angry and mean all the time is a little different than a person who snaps, who all of a sudden they burst out in something, and you can kind of almost tell sometimes, at least I can, that the person is not normally like that. And so I often, if the opportunity is there, that I may address the issue and ask them, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
It seems like maybe there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes, and that's exactly what you were just talking about. So we can react in kind. You talked about don't react in kind, but instead kind of like don't mimic what they're doing in bad behavior. And so by doing the opposite, it actually opened up
and that's
an
taking the high
opportunity
road,
to help.
isn't it?
Yes.
Exactly, because you could have just walked away and just maybe, you know, you have kept your cool. At least you didn't go to that level, but then you went out of your way to actually make sure that that person is all right, and you're making sure that the person knows that you care. And
Yeah.
this is probably the last thing the person would expect after an outburst like that.
Yeah, that's right. Another thing you mentioned is muscles grow under stress, and
Mhm.
I can tell you that Annette, she was at one point a personal fitness coach.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
we have to use the word coach because she wasn't actually a personal fitness trainer. She didn't go through
Okay.
the schooling for all that. She kind of took a little bit less, but then she started her own thing and she was doing boot camps and that kind of thing, and she really
Wow.
enjoyed
Okay.
it. Yeah, she really
Tough lady.
enjoyed it. Yeah. Yeah, she liked to whip people into shape but try and make it fun, right?
Good. Okay.
And yeah, and so, but she
She's
would
my
say
kind of
that,
lady.
yeah, but she would say that too, like it does take a lot of work, and it does take a lot of effort, and you need to be diligent. It takes twice as, I think, don't quote me on this, but if I remember correctly, she said one of the things she said, it takes twice as much energy to build muscle, um, than it does to make fat.
Oh, really?
And I believe so, yeah. And then she said, but if you stop working and you stop pushing yourself and building yourself and exercising, your muscles will dwindle away and deteriorate very quickly. You'll be
Hmm.
shocked at how quickly that they can
Wow.
deteriorate. So to be diligent and continue to do it all the time, all the time, all the time. And then you said in here, um, how do you handle situations determines your progress. And then you said, and then what I said in here is with that, is it that sometimes people quit? You had mentioned how people are are challenged with something, and sometimes they fail and they need to do it again and again and again until they finally get
Mhm.
it. And sometimes you said that people kind of they stay here and God accelerates the others, right?
Everybody else.
And as soon as you said that, pardon me, as soon as you said that, I was thinking, I used to, as a child, I used to play a lot of Mario Kart, which is a game. And the only way you would ever get good at it and better at it is to continue. And people
Mm.
would lap around and lap around, which is kind of, to me, in my mind anyway, what I was kind of seeing. Um, People can easily lap you and get much better at you, but if you don't quit, it's the people who quit that never got any better.
Yep.
But if you don't quit and continue, then suddenly you could keep up with them and you could actually win. And I
Yep.
think that's the same in life. You don't quit, you know, and
No.
you just keep on going, keep on growing, keep on maturing, hang
Can you
around with
think of
people.
Sorry.
Just saying,
Can
hang
you
around with
think of
people
a
who have answers.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I was wondering, can you think of an example of when what does it mean to be given the same test over and over again?
Um, I suppose. I mean, when we start off with walking, the basic, like child learning how to walk, it's the same thing
No, in
over and over and
life.
over
In
in
life,
life.
let's say you failed a test or you
Hmm.
haven't passed the test with flying colors, God's test. So what does it mean you keep taking them? What does that mean? If maybe you can tell the audience, like give an example.
Well, immaturity, maybe how we respond to other people. And let's say, as an example, then that we might lash out um, if something frustrates me or whoever. Excuse me. And whenever we face that same situation, we react the same way over and over and over again. But you can't be doing that because you need to learn how to maturely react, not how to react emotionally, but react properly. And so we need to learn how to grow in that, or we'll never succeed and move forward beyond that. Because if we're going to be working with people, you can't just snap at people all the time because they make you angry, because emotionally you're getting involved. And why would they say that? Why would they do that? You need to be able to handle situations properly, or you'll never move up further into a leadership role. Does that make sense? Is that kind of what you
Yeah,
were asking me?
I was thinking that something very tangible that people can face with. I think what happens is when you what we mean by by keep taking or keep giving the same task, you're going to meet the
Hmm.
same personality type. Like, let's say, you avoid the confrontation, or you avoid this type of person, but
Okay.
that doesn't mean that you overcome the challenge. You go, let's say somebody's keep pushing your buttons in one workplace. You're going to leave that place, and then you go into the next place to work. You're going to meet the same type of person there too, because see, that's the test. That's what I meant.
Okay.
You keep taking the task over and over again until you pass, until you
Okay.
learn to handle that particular jerk in your life. That's what I meant. So
Okay. Okay.
this is a club, so we can say that.
Yes. Yes. And
If it
also,
was a church, that would be some kind of, maybe not, but
I
it
mean,
is.
and when Annette and I were taking marriage counseling right after we got married, we kind of did all that beforehand to kind of get a good foothold and a good
Good. Yeah.
handle on what is marriage and how to, and they said in there, listen, if you are in a marriage, let's say you're married for 5 years and you decide, you know what, I can't handle this person anymore. I don't want to be around
Mhm.
this person
Mhm.
anymore. And you get a divorce. Okay. Then you find somebody else
Yep.
and you marry them. You're going to end up in the exact same situation with
Exactly.
that
Yeah,
person,
that's true.
and you will not move forward until you
That's
get
right.
through it. And you can have 6 divorces
Yeah.
and it will still not change. You still have to deal with that part.
Yeah.
And
You will
so
run into the
what
same personality types. Exactly.
in the first marriage where that person may have said, look, it's her fault, look, it's his fault, look, it's whatever, it turns out actually it's not. It's the way
Mm.
you reacted to it that was the
Yeah.
problem. And essentially you were the problem. So
Yeah.
unless it's an extreme thing, right? We all
Yeah.
know that. But yeah.
But really not, it's not about who's at fault very much. It's more
Right.
like who handles the situation better.
Correct.
Because ultimately we are all pitted against each other, or we could be
Right.
potentially,
Right.
especially if we are in a set. For instance, Anna was asking before we went live, how was the Germany trip? It was wonderful,
Hmm.
because we were surrounded by, because we are all mature people, seasoned people, and maybe some people were could have presented potential problems, but we all knew how to handle them. If you have like one or two in a group like this, it's easier to handle. But if you have like one or two mature people and the rest of them are immature, they can be pitted against each other. So, but in this trip, we had no problem whatsoever in terms of internal problems. We had a lot of other things we had to deal with, but
Hmm.
like out there, not within the team. But I'm just saying that within a team, any kind of team, especially if it is Christian, because it is more targeted, of course, you are going to have a lot of clashing, and a lot of what you were saying, the iron sharpens iron. These are opportunities on both sides.
Right.
On both sides. So each person can walk away with a growth, with
Hmm.
a personality development. But it depends who chooses the high road.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Um, we overcome evil by doing good. And by mimicking evil, that's not a good thing. And many years ago, I was in prayer and I was really struggling with I think it was anger or something, and so I saw a vision, and I saw one lighter here and another lighter here, and
Hmm.
when they came together, the flame doubled. And
Explosion, yeah.
by adding that, it didn't help. It
Yeah.
only, so you need to put it out or walk away or go away from it. And so um but good. By doing good, you need to be doing good, not evil or not something that we know is wrong. And that's kind of also, well, that is the high road as well. Knowing what good is and then choosing to do that, no matter
That's
what,
even if it costs you, and it will always cost you,
even if
because
it costs you.
yeah, isn't it? Because these trigger points were purposely positioned so that you would blow up, right? You would, explode. And to the disappointment of the other person, they pressed your button and nothing happened. You kept smiling because you kept your joy. That's why the Bible says that the joy of the Lord is our strength.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be strong in a situation like this because you have oiled yourself with the oil of joy. So this thing just slides off. People are going to throw things at you. I mean, the higher you get, the more slime you are going to be thrown, because people are, jealousy. I mean, that always what I come back to. It's always jealousy. I think that's the most thing, because if they would be doing what you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing well, they would be so focused on what they're doing. They wouldn't even have time to look at your things. They wouldn't even have time to criticize you. It's always those who don't do much or nothing at all with their lives who have the time to look at you and start criticizing you, isn't it?
Right.
So
With that point,
that's what it is.
Trying to remember the gentleman's name. He's passed on now, but I love that man. Really good man. He was a prophet, a real prophet. It was pretty amazing.
Kim Clement?
No.
No.
But I don't think you would know him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But he always said, always be busy doing what God wants you to be doing so that you never have time to look at others and criticize what they're doing.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. And
occupy till I come.
Sorry?
That's what, occupy till I come.
Yeah.
Be busy.
Yeah.
It's true. Apostle made this statement. I don't know if it's an African saying. It could be. I don't know. But this is the first time I heard it from him. That those who are standing by the road are the ones who notice that it's crooked. Not those who are digging it. I don't know how that was, but this is this mental picture I walked away with. And this is what I remember. So it's always those who don't work, because those who work are too busy doing what they're doing. They don't even notice that they may have, made some mistakes. But even they do, they just correct it. The rest of them just standing around and watching how you make a mistake, quote unquote, because it's only mistake for them. I think the real mistake is not to be busy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it how busy Apostle Paul was when God just took him and turned him around? And then he became very busy doing the right thing. But God always picks people who are busy doing something. I don't ever saw him picking someone who's lazy doing nothing, ever. Isn't it?
Yeah. It's the doing. So I'm trying to make this into a conversation. You had so many different points here.
Sure.
God, so then you said never quit. And I remember on one of the teachings that I did recently, God gave me a word specifically about not quitting. And that's so important that we don't quit. And what would you say why people quit? Is there like a tendency that you've seen that people will quit, or it's very broad and it's not really very specific?
These days, or by and large?
By and large.
Okay, well, by and large is because people don't see hope. Because if you see hope, then you know that there's whatever you're going through it.
Okay.
You see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you don't see anything, it's very hard to keep going, keep marching in the dark, isn't it? If you have no hope. So if you have no vision, the Bible says that without vision, the people perish.
Right.
Many people gave up when they had all these COVID-19 dumped on us. Many people quit. And when I read that many people quit in terms of commit suicide because, they were tested positive. obviously we know the whole thing is whatever it is. You can't say that here because you don't want to be censored. But the point is that they saw no hope, so they quit.
Right.
Had they seen what we see now, that it's over and the whole thing was a big H, starts with a H, ends with an X.
Yeah.
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 Hopefully the algorithm doesn't pick up on it, but whatever. So we know what that is. But if they would have seen this, or they would have believed, those of us who have a piece of brain and never believed in this whole thing the way it was presented to us, they would have just marched on and not quit. But sometimes what happens, especially if people are young, like teenagers, they don't really have like a futuristic, anything in the future because they are too, underdeveloped in their little brain. And that's why it's good to have mentors. But if you don't grow up in a family where people mentoring you, or they don't mentor you in the right way, or you just, hang out with the equally stupid little friends of yours, then obviously you are not going to have much hope and much vision. But it's, as those of us who have vision, we know what we are marching towards, each of us. You mentioned, everybody keep to their own lane. That's basically what the Bible says, run your own race. I'm running my race, you're running yours, I'm not running yours, you're not running mine. So there's no, I don't see what you see, but I don't have to see what you see, because what I see in front of me is different than what you see in front of you, know? And we are marching towards that goal that God has promised to us. And that's why the Bible says, write down the vision, make it plain. Don't write a whole page and then put it on your wall. Most likely you will not read it. You read the first 2 lines. But if you write it like in 2 points, and basically, I'm sure it's very plain what God has told you about yourself, where he's going to take you. And, so it's possible to write down the vision and make it plain. So every time I'm looking at it, or maybe it's a picture that you saw, maybe it's a picture, then put that picture in front of you. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe God wants to give you a media center. Then make a picture of a media center, put it on your wall. Every time you look at it, it's a vision. And every time you see that vision, that visual, it strengthens in you. It's an interesting, it's a lot of experiment has been made regarding what vision does, what a visual image does to people who can't even read, or even babies,
Right.
It's interesting that when they see anything like even a ball or something, babies, little babies, newborn babies, if it's a ball, they don't react. But if you put 2 dots, and a thing, but actually 2 dots only, they would regard it as an eye, and they would smile at it because they think it's a face. Isn't that neat? So even, image and visual are wonderful, helpful to people. So much more if it's something spiritual. So that's why we always suggest people put that 2 line on your door or wherever you are, or mirror. I mean, you're looking at the mirror at least once a day, hopefully, when you do your hair or whatever, or makeup. So put it there where you always see it. If it's an image, then put that image there. If God promised you a husband, put that husband there. If God promised you a house, put the house there. If God promised you an airplane, put that airplane there. It's a visual that strengthens your result, your resolute, your stickability. Wasn't it last time we taught on that? Yeah. So images are very, very, very important. But I think people quit because they have no picture for the future.
Right.
None whatsoever. All they see is what's now.
Right.
And if they see COVID now, they think it's going to be here forever, especially it's, being affirmed by, different media outlets. But that's why I suggest people don't watch it, don't listen to it, because that's what you are going to be filled with. Not a good thing.
Right.
I have to plug my computer in.
Okay.
Let's see.
And so you can still hear me, right?
I'm listening, and it's
okay. Good. Yeah. So Dr. Jordan Peterson, he was talking about writing down, and he says, what is writing? He says, writing is thinking.
Uh-huh.
If you can write down your vision, write down anything, really, you're thinking through specifically what you want to write, and therefore you're thinking. And he says that if you can write and write well, that means you can think and think well, and
Yeah.
you actually are a very powerful person
Yeah.
because you learned how to think through. There's probably a reason and a tie with that, way back when there was people who were not financially rich and were banned from being able to read and write.
Mm-hmm.
It's only for the rich, it's only for the select, and so on. And so really what was happening is they were limiting people on visions and
Yeah.
on power, really.
Yeah.
Because with that ability to think, they would probably begin to recognize, well,
Yeah.
what's going on here? What's going on here? Right? Another thing I wanted to ask you, because I don't recall exactly how it goes, and I'm hoping that you do. You mentioned hope, and I've heard Pastor Donna talk about hope being a blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Would you be able to explain that again in a way for those who have not heard that, maybe? And also for me too, because I'm trying to remember, and for me not to remember it specifically means I don't quite know it well enough.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard that teaching, but I heard the line. I
Mhm.
haven't heard that particular teaching from her,
Okay.
but I
Okay.
of course heard the line. I know the line. Yeah. Hope is the blueprint of your future.
Okay.
So that's basically what we have been discussing thus
Right.
far, that
Right.
it can be a picture. I think a picture is a very good thing. Usually
Mhm.
it's a picture. God gives you a picture. And then if you don't understand, he gives you an explanation for it.
Right.
And then
Right.
it's a very good thing to write it down because you keep it in front of yourself always.
Mhm.
You don't do it for others, you do it for yourself.
Right.
And I'm glad you mentioned about the writing down. I mean, not writing down, but writing down, because there's some because I have studied different I was going to say mind control techniques, not really, but how they I have actually, but for the right purpose. I have to
Yeah.
explain. But
Yeah.
anyway, so how they try to use that, abuse that rather. But the thing is that when you write something down like this with cursive with your hand, that basically that creates some kind of neuron pathways in your brain, physically measurable, when
Okay.
you write it down. So it's a good thing when you have a difficult situation and you write it down, you write down the solution
Okay.
or the steps you should be taking, and your mind does the rest. It connects
Right.
the dots.
Okay.
So what happens is when you write things down and then you go and I don't know, you go to do your daily routine, your mind keeps working on that problem and then presents different solutions.
Okay.
So that's what happens because it creates a neuron pathway. Just the fact that you wrote it down, that's one of the reasons, of course, by God, write it down. Of course, he was not going on. He was not going to go into more details about the neuron pathways in those age because people had no clue. So he just gave them this instruction: write it down, make it plain.
Right.
Because he knew, of course, that he created the brain that way, that it will do the rest. So, but now we know more about these things, thank God. And as the knowledge is expanding, we have more options, and we know how to use it for advantage. But God was very wise and very benevolent for letting us know that these are the steps to take in order to solve a solution.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, we are to physically write down, if possible, with a pen or pencil or whatever, what we want to achieve, the actual goal that we're trying to
The
reach.
goal, correct.
And then as we go about our day, and then we want to put it up somewhere so we can see it to remind ourselves.
Yeah.
And then as we go throughout the day, our mind will begin to think of solutions on how we
Correct.
can
Yeah.
achieve or reach that goal.
I've known it from science because I studied
Mhm.
it, but I know it also from experience. And for me, I mean, everybody, it could be for everyone a different activity, but for me, sports has always been in my life. So whether
Right.
it's and sport and music was always present in my life. So whether I do music, I mean, after I wrote these things down, whether it's music or sports, something that is completely different,
Okay.
and my mind does the rest, because then I'm not so much focusing on the, I'm not straining myself on it, but
Right.
I allow the mind to do its work, what it's
Okay.
supposed to do. Sometimes
Right.
what happens is that, I'm sure you're familiar with the that feeling that when you try to remember a word or someone's name,
Mhm.
it escapes you
Yeah.
because it's too much strain on the brain at the time. But just
Yeah.
give it a few seconds, and then, or even a few, and then it just pops it up by itself, because all the brain is trying to do, opening those little drawers. Okay, where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it? Where is it? And then when you are not, when don't apply more strain and more pressure on the brain in that area, it is free to do its work. So similar to, with your goals or with our goals, the same way. Of course,
Right.
it's a little more complex, but if I have experienced it, that even to the point, okay, how do we solve this technical situation? And then just pops in,
Right.
this is how we do it, or who to contact regarding. And then suddenly I just remember, obviously the Holy
Yeah.
Spirit can bring these things into, and he does bring these things into remember, but also you have an excellent brain. Use
Mhm.
that brain.
And I think too, one of the mistakes I hear people do, and I've caught myself at times doing as well, and I stop immediately, is to say, "Oh, I can never remember that." By saying that, you are
Yeah.
convincing yourself
Yeah.
and locking it in that you don't remember. It's
Yep.
better to just pause and then say, "In this moment, I don't remember, but I will remember," or just say, "I'll remember that
Yeah, exactly. That's the
shortly.
best. Don't even
I'll
don't
remember
even
that shortly."
vocalize anything negative, obviously,
Right.
because
Right. Right.
I heard from another scientist that the reason why you are the best person to talk to yourself about something good and affirming the positive is because you hear it twice. When
Right.
you speak, you hear it in your inner ear, and you also hear it outside. So you
Okay.
hear it twice. Isn't that
Okay.
interesting?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's
It
why
is.
it's, and plus, you're the only voice you really trust.
Right.
Your voice is the only voice you really trust because you know it so well.
Right.
So if you tell yourself that you're wonderful, awesome, blessed, successful, powerful, da, 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 you will believe it more than if someone comes from the outside and tells you. Unless the person is anointed, of course, but that's a different story.
Mhm.
The anointing makes a difference. But I'm just talking in the natural.
Yeah. 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 Um, some people will say, it's all about me. They make it all about themselves. And at that point, you were talking about insecurities and people who try to, what's the word I'm looking for? Try to put on you the
Project.
error.
Yeah.
Thank you. To project their beliefs in that moment, and what they're believing in themselves is that they're insecure, but they don't want you to recognize that they're insecure.
Hmm.
And so they try to quickly put up a
Yeah.
distraction before
Yeah.
you notice,
Yeah.
if you will. But it doesn't fool very many people. It just kind of makes you look
A lot of people
dumb,
do
right?
projections, I think so. And I mean, for the most part, why would you try to bring someone down or pull someone down? Because you think that you are down, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
I have uh, someone that I know for a long time, and this person is just always out there to destroy me. Never succeeded once. I mean, not even once. And it's all
Right.
jealousy and envy. All jealousy and envy, and that's what the person has been spending his whole life on, basically. Anybody else as well, but especially me, I buck him the most. I
Mm.
should be proud of
Mm.
that, actually. Must have done something well, to trigger someone like that. But imagine what a waste of time, isn't it? What a waste of time,
Mhm.
waste of energy. I mean, I can't I can't even imagine that I would sit and spend my days and nights and whatever to come up in some kind of lie about someone who has never hurt me, by the way. So just to prove to myself really that I'm just as good as she is. But nobody
Right.
said that you're not. So what's your
Right.
problem? So again, we are coming back to the same thing. The problem is really with the person. Because otherwise, why would you do that? Nobody at their right mind would do that.
No, and they're and they've in this specific situation, they've made you the focus. And they're for some reason trying to be better, but if they just stayed in their lane and do what they're supposed
Yeah.
to be doing,
But see, that wasn't enough.
it wouldn't matter.
Yeah. Some people think that by bringing you down, you know,
They
they
can
are
step on
getting
you and
higher
go
up,
up.
but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not. They don't advance themselves. So
No,
it's
because
and you're not going to be on that level ever because you already are higher and you are taking the high road. So I never retaliated, I never responded, but I'm just watching this because it's an ongoing thing, and it's like I know the person, so it's like I can use this as an example to teach me because it's something I have lived with. And yeah, interesting. So when people say, you know what, my fan club, this and that, forget the fan club, you know, they are not as, they can never be as bad as people that you know for a long time. You know, like close family members and things like that. So it's like that could be the most challenging, and that's why I'm addressing that specifically, because it's Christmas time and we meet our families, and you know that very cousin or that uncle that you don't like sitting next to at the dinner table, at a Christmas table. So but number one, you don't have to sit next to them. Number two, you don't take the bait. You don't respond to the pushing of the button because it's not the person. It's a spirit. It's a spirit.
Right.
And we are higher than that, and we are, you know, we are just not on that level. I mean, we are eagles.
Yeah. And by agreeing with that, you're allowing that atmosphere to take over. And we don't want to do that.
Never.
Never.
No, you control the atmosphere because you're the one who's higher.
Yeah.
So don't see, but that's the thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's like this. If someone is obviously words create atmosphere as much as music does and light does. But words, I mean, you know, talk about cutting words, you know, and suddenly the air freezes and everybody's quiet, and then, you know, those moments. And then the person will, oh, I wish I haven't said that. I just slipped that. Oh, I'm so sorry. But then the words are already out, right? So it's like it's hard to take those words back. So it's best to be quiet when you have nothing good to say. But also, you control the atmosphere. You can, when somebody, you know, just something slips out, you know, regarding yourself, you don't have to respond in the same spirit, because then you are under that atmosphere. But we are not under the weather, we are over the weather, over the atmosphere. We are the ones changing the atmosphere. So you can just, you know, use a wise comment, you can just use a gracious comment, or just laugh it off. You don't have to take the bait. There are so many different ways you can respond to a bait, and none of them is good if that just escalates the situation. So you always want to just, you know, you want to create a peaceful atmosphere, especially around Christmas time, but always, because in peace, people can grow. If there's strife, that's all you are focused on. And you are also breaking everybody else's focus, because one way or another, everyone's going to take sides, get involved, you know, this, that, you know, not a good thing. And you are not
a big mess. Yeah. Speaking of words being said and not being able to take it back, I was teaching a class at a church there, the young kids, and I got this from Focus on the Family, actually, where you take, in this case, toothpaste. You can take anything as long as it is in a tube or something. And I put paper plates around in front of each person and a small toothpaste tube. And I said, at the count of three, everybody, I want to see who can pour out all the toothpaste the fastest. Ready, steady, go. And so they all did. And I said, okay, now at the count of three, I want to see who's going to be the fastest with putting it back. Ready, steady, go. And they weren't able to. And I said, that's just like words. Once they're spoken, It's very difficult to take it back. There was one girl though in my class. By the end of the class, she had used a toothpick and put it all back
Seriously.
in. Seriously, I thought you.
Well, with words, you can do that.
And then I said, but then, but then in a moment, I didn't quite remember, think of how I could uh, teach that further by her putting it back. But one day I was with Annette and I said, oh, I got it finally. If I would have smelled that plate, that paper plate, it still would have been there. And then I could have
Okay.
said, see, it's still there, even though there's no evidence of it. The aroma of it is still
Yes.
there.
And the scent and all. Yeah, very true.
So, but anyway,
One of the
good
best
example.
pictures I have heard about rumors. It's like you take a pillow full of feathers
Mhm.
and you go up to the rooftop and just shake it. And of course, the wind scatters it. So, okay, so now at the count of 3, get those things that you can.
No.
And then the person, actually, I saw it in a movie, and then the person said, but I can't. I don't, why can't you take it back? She said, because I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
In the wind. That's exactly it. That's exactly like rumor. You don't know where the wind takes it. You are unable to take it back. So, and that has to do with words as well. So you are very right in saying that you don't want to do that. You don't want to mess with that. And you don't want to be responsible for spreading things that you are not even sure of, because you don't know who's taking it where.
Mhm. And I can see also in that same thing, let's say that they did try to collect them. Well, I think that it would be a good demonstration of how frustrating it would be after it's been spoken, because
Yeah.
they wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
collect them all. It would be very, very frustrating, and it's the same. You don't want to be doing that. Yeah, it frustrates everything.
Yeah. And it takes much longer than to spread it, isn't it? Much
Mhm.
longer to take it back, each one by
Take
one.
it back. Yeah, yeah. You almost just to say, God, please forgive me and please clean that up, because I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Always take the high road. Hold on to your joy. Did I get that right at that point?
Say it
I
again.
wasn't quite.
Say it again.
Hold on to your joy.
Yes, hold on to your joy.
Oh, okay. At that moment, I wasn't exactly sure if I heard you correctly. And then you have a destiny to protect.
That's right.
And so to hold on to that and to see the joy in the journey would that be a good way to put that into your
Yeah.
destiny?
The point is that you know where you're going. So what does it matter who says what? They don't know where you're going, only you do. They don't know what God promised you, and they don't have to know.
Yeah.
So for instance, maybe God told you to learn French. Oh, you know what, you can't even speak, I don't know, maybe English well, so why would you even bother with French? Or I don't know. I mean, people can say all kinds of stuff. Nobody ever learned any other language in your family, so why do you think you're so high and mighty? But God told you to learn French.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of things, like they don't see the vision in front of you, but you do. You know why you need to learn French. Other people don't need to know, but their first instinct might be, nobody speaks French in your family. Nobody goes to college in your family. Why would you go to college? But maybe God wants you to teach others, you know?
Mhm.
So that's what I'm saying. You just put it in front of you. Don't have to tell it to anybody else. But I have people who came to my house at many years ago, Christian. And I was big on putting things on the wall, my wall, that were important to me because they were connected to dreams and destiny, mine. And then this person would walk in. He was actually a minister, and he would just begin to mock it, and it was so demonic what he was doing. I didn't even know the person, and just immediately the mockery. No Christian, no non-Christian friends ever mocked. They said, wow, you are very focused, you have your thing. And guess what? I am the fulfillment of those things today that I have posted on my wall. But this person, he apparently didn't have a high opinion of me. And I remember that it never happened before or after. But it's interesting that it happened, that I'm glad it did, because now I can teach about it.
There you go. Yeah.
I've been there. I know that. So sometimes what people don't understand, they tend to mock. But I didn't respond in the same spirit. But I still remember it was shocking, rather shocking, because number one, you're a guest in my house. So why would you start mocking something you don't understand?
Yeah.
And it's just very interesting. But
Yeah.
some people are that way.
Hmm. I've been thinking about this a lot. So I'm gonna take the opportunity to mention it. Um, there are people like, okay, when people can't speak the language of where they're at. So in Canada, it's English. Where you are, it's Hungarian. In Holland, it would be Dutch and
Dutch.
so on. Um, but they can speak another language fluently. If they're learning another language, they now know two.
Hmm.
I think that's a very powerful thing. And
Yeah.
and it I actually get very intrigued when a person is talking and they don't understand the language. I recognize that they're saying it how they'd say it in their language. And
Yeah.
even though it's not correct here, I actually kind of get excited about it because if you've ever written poetry and you're trying to find a way to rhyme something and
Yeah.
you're just kind of going by English and then you hear somebody talk and it's like, oh, well, you can actually kind of say it that way and flip it around. To me, I think it's a wonderful thing. And there are some people, of course, and you've probably heard it too, where people say, "Oh, they can't even speak the language. What mumble, mumble, mumble." And I just think to myself, seriously, like they're learning a second language. I'm not even doing that. I know how to speak English. I can recognize bits and pieces here and there, but I would never fault someone for it. I'm the first guy to jump in and try to help them,
Yeah.
So however I can. But I just don't understand the mockery of it. Since you mentioned mockery, kind of
Well,
what made me think of
I
that.
think it's just projection of their own limitation.
Yeah,
Because if they would also speak another language, they would understand that it could be a struggle. It could be, difficult at times to remember or to say, especially if you think in 2, 3, 4, like 5 languages. This is all kind of in your head, all
yeah,
the words. And so if they don't understand the process or why even bother learning another language or let alone another culture, that just shows that they are so left behind and they don't like to be left behind. So they would
right.
prefer that you would be
Okay,
also left behind so they wouldn't feel alone. You see,
right.
it's
No,
like
that
this,
kind of makes sense.
for instance, you're working wherever you're working, but then suddenly you decide, you know what, I'm going to just go, I don't know, I'm going to move to Holland and find my or Hamburg and find my ancestors, and I'm going to work there and I'm going to work with that family, whatever. And then your colleague says, no, 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 this is so stupid, because they don't want to be left behind,
Hmm.
right? And they
Right,
don't have the vision you have, they don't have the ancestry you have. So they're automatically, instead of supporting it, small-minded people tend to think that way.
right.
Oh, why would you move? You lived your whole life here. Why would you move suddenly in a country you've never been before, or you don't know the language, or you never met those family members? But it's not their vision, it's yours.
Right.
But because it's bigger than theirs and they can't comprehend it, they immediately jump into trying to hold you back. So they would not
Hmm.
feel bad about themselves, isn't it?
Hmm.
So I think it's always they're on the same area, in my opinion, and it's jealousy and envy, because they
Right.
wish they would have the courage to pack
Yeah.
everything up and then
That
move to
makes,
the
I think that makes very good sense that they wish that they would have the courage. I
same with the
think,
languages, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
this saying
Very
that
good.
people with accent are those who speak at least one more language than you do.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah.
So don't
And
mock people with accents, because that's because you speak at least one more language than you do.
when I was a child, like my mom grew up at the tail end of the war, World War II. And so they had to, in school, they had to learn Russian a little bit. They had to learn
Uh-huh.
Ukrainian a little bit, just because there's so many different cultures coming together.
Yeah.
She's from Germany, right? So
Yes.
anyway, so as I was growing up, we had a little game where we were out and about doing whatever, and we would listen to somebody and we would hear them speak, and we would recognize that they had an accent. And so, amongst ourselves, we would listen carefully and
Uh-huh.
follow them around a little bit and try to guess what the accent might be and where we think they might be from.
Yeah.
Then, once we kind of decided, we would ask them, and they would never say no. We would go to them, and then we would tell them what we were doing. Can we ask you, because of this, can we ask you where you're from? Oh, well, where do you think I'm from? And so then, and it created a
Yeah,
conversation. My mom
yeah.
is an excellent conversationalist, excellent. She can keep a conversation going for 3 hours plus. But
Wow, I so envy
hard
that.
to-
I'm more like straight to the point. But I also admire and stuff. But it's an art. That's an art to call the
It is
conversation.
an art. It is an art, and she's taught me, and I'm not nearly as good as she is, but she's taught me, and I can keep a conversation going as well, and it's a real gift. I think it
It's a
is. People have commented to me, it's like, man, you can really keep a conversation going. Like I didn't realize we were talking for 2 hours, you know. So,
wow.
yeah. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of what you had taught here. Only fight battles that involve your destiny. That one I wrote big. I had never heard that before.
Mm,
That was a new one. That was wonderful, and I thank you for that because
thank you.
that's amazing, actually. And you said, notice David only fought battles that involved his destiny.
Yeah. With Goliath, because remember
With
there was
yeah,
another one. He almost went into but was stopped.
yes,
With
yes,
the husband of Abigail,
yeah,
Nabal. He
yeah,
was ready to fight that
yeah,
idiot.
yeah.
And the wife came out and said, why? I mean, really, the
Mhm,
guy is an idiot. I know he's
yeah.
an idiot. I'm married to him. Don't bother. He's a fool. And sure enough, he like in 10 days, he got dealt with him and he died. I think 10 days,
Mhm,
wasn't it?
mhm,
So the point is that it didn't involve his destiny. It was more like his ego in terms of his buttons was pushed and he had the right to retaliate. Yet it was not for him to fight. I mean, really, it was just a crow pestering him for
right.
no reason at
Mhm,
all. And it seems like that was the guy's habit.
yeah,
You know, he was not
yeah,
liked by anybody if you read the whole story. So that
right.
was his Nabal's whole thing. Everybody knew this about him, that the guy is a fool. He
Mhm,
would pick fights and he would not be on good terms with anybody. So Abigail said, don't fall into that category. Don't let your buttons push. This is not for your destiny. And
yeah.
he stopped it right then. Maybe he wouldn't have ended up where he ended up,
And it's
had he
very
done it right.
interesting too. Speaking of Abigail, how she took the high road because she knew she was married to a fool.
Yeah.
She stuck with it.
I
She
wonder
must
how
have,
that marriage came about. I've
yeah,
often thought of that because she was extremely wise and he
yeah,
was extremely foolish. So how did
yeah.
these two, obviously arranged marriage, but
I was thinking the same. But how in the end, her, she must have learned a lot on confrontation,
uh-huh.
on staying steady,
Yeah.
staying good anyway. I mean, look at her response and how quickly she responded the way that she did in absolute wisdom, and she did it immediately.
Yeah.
And in the end, she became one of David's wives.
Wise. David
Right.
wasted no time after the guy was dead. Immediately he approached her.
Hmm.
She said yes. And see,
Hmm.
because of her wisdom, he avoided a fight he was not supposed to be in. God knows how would have it ended. Maybe the guy would have killed him. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he ended up with a wonderful woman. And she
Yeah.
ended up with being married to the king. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win, isn't it?
Speaking of royalty, she became in the family of royalty. She's
Yeah.
recognized that
In
she
the
was in the
lineage of
family
David, wasn't
of royalty.
it?
And she was honored in it too. So that's
Yes.
I just think that's a pretty amazing. She must have been just an amazing woman, actually.
Must have been.
Yeah.
Must have been.
Um, and I don't have to pay attention to others who try to get my attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to engage,
That's right.
as you would say. You don't have to engage in stupidity.
Yeah. You don't engage with stupid because it's not your
Yeah,
level. It's
yeah,
not your level.
that's right. Yeah.
The Bible says, and I often thought about these two verses. I think it's in Proverbs, one of my favorite books. It says, oh, let's see how it says. Just popped into my head. Don't respond to the fool with foolishness, because then you will be like him. Isn't
Okay.
it? Does it ring a bell? And the other one is,
Yeah.
I think, right after that, respond to the fool with his foolishness, so that he would not be wise in his own eyes. So I guess depends on the situation. You will do either one or the other. But I prefer the first, when it says, don't respond to the fool according to his foolishness. Because
Okay.
then
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
will be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. I'm actually trying
If
to find
somebody
this
looks
here.
at you from the outside, they listen to the conversation, one dishonors, the other one dishonors back. So who they wouldn't know who started it. They said you guys are both big, you know. Who said that? Somebody said that, very famous. Maybe Oscar Wilde. I don't know. I don't remember. Anyway, he said, don't fight with pigs, because they drag you down to the mud and they will enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because that's
They
their
will.
surrounding. It's not
They will.
yours. To you, it
Yeah.
could be a foreign thing.
Yeah.
You only went there because you were dragged and because you wanted to fight. But to them, they will enjoy it. That's their usual surrounding. They're completely at home with that surrounding, with the swamp, you know. But you're not. You don't belong there. So don't even engage. They only want to, you know.
Yeah. Had Abigail responded foolishly, as her husband, as she described, he's a fool, and then responded foolishly, how would that have all ended? We
She
probably
probably would have
would
been
never,
killed the same way.
and we may never have even heard about it at
Yeah.
all. We don't know, because what would
Or
have
like
happened
a
to David?
cautionary tale.
Yeah, or what would have happened to David? Would it have resulted as well?
Yeah,
You know what I
definitely
mean?
he wouldn't have been married, because why would David marry a foolish woman?
Yeah, I knew she wouldn't
So
have been married,
obviously
but
that would have been that door of royalty would have been closed to her.
yeah.
But she also had a good heart, isn't it? She wasn't only wise and smart and all, but she had a very good heart, and she gave all these things. You know, she didn't come empty-handed.
No, she didn't.
Brought a lot of things, and then she also brought a very, very wise counsel. That it seems that none of David's men were able to tell the king, don't do it. He wouldn't have listened to them, but a woman, he listened.
Yeah. And
that's how much power revealed over men.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? She brought food, so I mean, hey, that's.
Oh, okay. So maybe there was a food, food and the wine. That's what it was. I think that always helps. That always helps to soften men's heart. Food.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I have gone through everything you said, and I'm trying to think of anything else, and I'm not sure.
You can add some personal experience if you wish, like how you handled your neighbor this morning or whatever.
Oh, well, I can tell you this. So that's easy. I tell you this at work, where because I operate heavy machinery and so on mostly, and so it's a construction environment, and many people there they talk exactly and do exactly as what we're talking about here. So it's a daily experience for myself to be doing this at this time. I don't, we'll see what happens in the future here, but anyway, yeah. So, and people are recognizing my stance, and they are responding more and more, responding well.
Good.
And it's even the higher up, like I'm talking the regional manager, he's starting to recognize it, because he talks just the same. They all talk the same, which, and I've kind of mentioned lightly, saying, look, guys, like, you're the one leading everyone else. Look at the example you're setting, and it's trickling down.
Yeah.
So, like, what? Yeah. Well, I've always done it this way.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's how they grew up, isn't it?
Maybe you've always done it wrong. And
yeah. What I usually say in situations like this, that I always done it this way, or I always, this is all I know. Well, maybe there's a better way.
Right.
I always say maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a higher way. And no one can say no to that, because who wouldn't want to be better or do better or have something better or have something bigger? Because we were born and created this way. That we always gravitate towards things that are more, better, bigger, and this is natural. Nobody wants to move to a smaller house or get a smaller car necessarily.
Right.
Unless it's for the gas price, but usually. But I'm just saying that's a perfectly normal. We are into shiny objects and things like that. That's normal. But so if you offer them, I know a better way. I know a way that's better, that will give you better result. It will make you feel better, make your colleagues feel better. Maybe they will respond to that better.
Which is, that's actually a better way of putting it than I did. Yeah, I can see that. So I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that in the
Good for you.
Future. And I did have my supervisor and their lead hand, the ones who helped them directly, um, ask me directly, like, okay, so we're not able to get the crew to react properly in the way that we want. What do you think we're doing wrong? And I said, you're not giving them clear direction. I said, you're not
Wow.
telling them what you want. You're not giving them expectations. You're just saying, this is what needs to be done, guys, go. That's not really leadership. You need to be
Wow.
specific. What do you want? Assign people, do this kind of thing. And they were kind of shocked at my response. And there's a lot. I've learned a lot here of leadership. I've always kind of learned leadership, but I've learned so much here. Oh my goodness. It's just, you guys are loaded. We all are now, right?
You
So
all
I'm
are,
learning. I'm learning, yeah. And so it's very wonderful, very wonderful. And yes.
I'm surprised you're not running your own company yet.
Well, yeah, Apostle has had me start one, but what I was doing kind of dwindled away. So I got to redirect what I'm doing. It is my plan. It is in the works. I should probably
because you're
be faster
definitely a
about it,
leader. You're definitely a born leader. So
yeah.
and you have a way with people, how to, as you said, conversationalist, that's a very, very big key because you know how to communicate. A leader must know how to communicate. And you can't expect your people to do what you have never told them to do or what you have never prepared them to do, and you are very good at that as well. So I'm sure it's in your future.
Yeah, thank you. And I did a lot of concrete pumping. And so when I pulled up with the pump, the guys that I'm working with, there's a lot of money in concrete, at least here in Canada. And so a lot of the guys would turn that into using drugs. So here I am. That's out of my control. I can't do that. One of the things that they would do is cocaine and smokable cocaine, which is crack, right? So it was a very common, very common thing that they would do. And so
they mix it with concrete, no? What?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. The money that they made from concrete is
that's what they
use to go purchase their,
Makes sense.
So, and I had to deal with these people. My job was to simply get it done. And how do you get a guy to work with you and get the job done when all he wants to do is fight with anybody that he sees because he just came off of a high and all that.
Yeah.
And I really learned how to handle aggressive people.
Wow.
And in the end, I think now it's so natural that I know I'm very good at it. And I do kind of like the aggressive types just because they say what they mean and they mean what they say, and they don't mince words, and then at least you can talk about it, right? You just gotta make sure you say you just want to say it in such a way that you don't have to duck because they're starting to swing at you, so that's the wisdom part there. But
maybe you should teach on that, how to handle aggressive people. I'm sure everybody could use that.
Yeah, I could. Okay, I'll start thinking about that and putting something together.
You should teach on that.
Okay, I will work on that. That's next.
Good, wonderful. So is there any last words from anyone from the big audience we have here? I don't know what happened to people. I don't care though. I don't care. I'm fine.
There you go. That's okay.
We had our private sessions today.
Yes, that's right. That's all right. It's actually kind of nice every once in a while.
It's nice, isn't it?
I know this is meant to be an outreach and so on, and people will hear this.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, because I remember telling, but then I forgot that in Germany, we met people who came to us. Oh, we're watching your show. We're watching your show. See,
Nice.
everybody knows about you. You're hailing from Hamburg and me, Hungary, and all the other people. And they recognize our faces, and they came to me, and they also came to Frida, and they brought us gifts. Yeah,
Nice.
because they're watching our show. Yeah.
That's exciting.
So thank you so much for watching our show. Thank you for just joining in from wherever you are joining in. And of course, I know people cannot be always joining in live, but they are free to watch it on YouTube and in other platforms. And this has been another edition of the Royal Club. We have discussed how to handle difficult people in our lives. And hopefully you are walking away with something. And next week, we are going to have Frida with us, and she is probably going to teach us on women in the Bible. That's what she was supposed to bring today, but she was away on a family business, and maybe she will share with us a little bit of the family business next time around. Thank you so much for joining us. So next Wednesday at 8:30 CET, we'll see you again. Thank you, Mark, for joining me. God bless you.
Bye.
Love you.